day 4 of the 12 Days of Birth series, which is crazy. I feel like we've already done this a million times, but we still have so many amazing stories to come. Today we're going to share the story of Sabrina and her preemie birth, which I think is going to be really interesting because we get to dive into a really nuanced picture of birth and also, what happens after your baby's born and the kind of things that come with having a premature baby. I wanted to take a little second and also talk about donating to this project. So if you really like these stories and you want to support this project and you want to hear more birth stories, or maybe you want your birth story told, then buy me a cup of coffee. It's as simple as that. There's a link in my bio to donate to the project by buying me a cup of coffee, which just makes it more fun. So go check that out if you have the resources and it feels aligned to support the project in this way. So I'm also going to encourage you to check out the other stories. We have some pretty interesting threads of conversation that are happening between the women, and we're kind of like scaffolding and building upon their stories every day. So make sure you go back and check that out, and they will be available on YouTube soon if you're a YouTube user, or if you want to share your story with someone who's not on socials. So I will update my page as soon as that's available. It's a process. Okay, let's invite Sabrina into the conversation. Chime in with questions in the comment section. I'll do my best to take a look at them while she's talking and bring them in naturally into the conversation, or we'll have times in the conversation where it feels right to pop them in. It's also another snow day here. So truly anything goes. Let me know if you are having a snow day where you are. But yeah, we're juggling all the kids being home, the dogs, the cats, all the weather. So, okay. I invited Sabrina to join, so hopefully things on her end. She can click and join us, but let me know in the comments where you're from, because not everybody is from our area who's tuning in. So it'd be really fun to know who's here. Maybe share if you are a birth worker or if you are a mama, how many kids you have. It'd be fun to know that as well. Okay, I'm gonna keep trying to play around with technology. Okay, let's cancel and invite again, and hopefully it works. These things are always fun to navigate, especially when you're in a live or when you have a time crunch. So Sabrina, Sabrina has 2 little ones. So this is the birth of her second son that she's going to share with us. Her first is Sabrina's in my Radical Mom group, so I get to see them in person, and he's such a little man, and he's so funny and so cute, and it's just, those kids that have huge characters already to them. They're like little 90-year-old men. That's definitely her oldest. Okay, go live. Here we go. I think I clicked all the proper buttons, except go live. Hang in there, everybody. I'm gonna put my data on and see if that makes things go faster. So yeah, let us know where you are from. It's not working, Sabrina. It's so annoying. I hate Instagram sometimes. It's you do all the right things and it still is a pain in the ass. Sabrina, do you have your profile as public or private? Let me know if you can. And then what we might do, sorry, we're just having some technical difficulties. Yeah, comment where you're from. I'm going to do it one more time. It says unable to join, so I'm going to add her again, and hopefully it'll work. There we go.
Hello. Sorry, I completely forgot to change it to public.
Ah, ha, ha, ha. There we go. Hey, why can't I see you now? I can't see
Oh,
you. Can you see
um,
me and you? Can you guys see Sabrina?
can you see me now? I
No.
can see both of us.
Okay, maybe it's working. I'm gonna like, okay,
Oh, someone said they can see both.
now I can't see my anything.
Oh,
Can you guys
no.
see now? This, this is so annoying.
I
Thank you,
can't
Meredith.
I can't see you.
Okay, because I pressed this. Okay, there we go.
Good.
Can
I
you
can
see
see you
now?
now. I can see you.
Okay, I can't see you, but
Okay.
we'll go with it.
Oh, okay.
Maybe you'll magically pop up in a minute. Thank you for everybody's patience. I'm just gonna pop one more thing, one more setting on my phone on to support us. Okay, cool. All right. It's so weird that I can't see you, but
I know. I'll try
okay, well,
turning
why
mine
don't
off
you,
now.
yeah, we can play with it. As long as you can still hear,
That's
we
okay.
can still hear you. We'll figure it out. Can someone just confirm one more time that can you see both Sabrina and myself? And then we'll get started. Do you want to talk about did you want to talk about your first birth experience? Kind of like give it to us in a nutshell so
Sure.
that we can kind of have an idea. Because I think, oh, thank you. Yes, they can see us both. Phew. Okay. I think that it's really interesting that like your second experience was with a preemie because sometimes people have that experience with a preemie first
Mhm.
and then their next kiddo they don't have any of those issues, so you already will have had a birth experience before this, so I think that's
Right.
interesting.
Yeah,
So
so Brooks,
also,
he's 3.5. He was a full-term pregnancy. I mean, 10 days over what they gave me as an expected due date.
right.
Um, and with that pregnancy, I was so naive and didn't really have my power or know that I could say no to things that they were telling me I needed to do. So I went in to be induced with Brooks, 10 days over, and I was induced. I had my water broken. I was in labor for about like 6 or 7 hours and then started pushing, and I pushed for like almost 3 hours with
Wow.
Brooks. So super long. He was posterior, and so he was giving me that like super painful back labor.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so I actually got an epidural with Brooks, and it didn't even take. It didn't do a single
Mm.
thing for me.
So
So I still
you didn't
felt
have
all.
any numbness, any like reduced feelings at all?
Like it numbed my one leg a little bit, but it didn't take away from the back pain, which is what
Mm,
I was wanting it to do. So,
yeah.
yeah, and he like they like to, or they're supposed to tuck, right, to come out so that they can come around your pelvic bone. And he was like this. So my midwife, I was at the AMU in Markham, Stouffville Hospital, which is the midwife unit, and she was like trying to help him come out for that whole time. I was very swollen after, and he was not coming. So they offered me like all the interventions, which were like the
Mm-hmm.
vacuum, the forceps, like all the things. And I was like, no, I don't want those tools being used. So I actually had a C-section with Brooks. So I did C-section and then feedback with Cade.
Okay, so it's really interesting that did they talk about the epidural afterwards? Did they say anything about it? Did they unpack that with you with Brooks?
They didn't tell me anything, no, but I also didn't ask questions, which I probably should have. Um, they didn't, they were explaining to me that this far into labor, it might do something, it might not, but it just, yeah, I don't know if it was like put in wrong or what that was about.
But
So,
I'm like, that's really interesting because yeah, it's supposed to provide
yeah,
like equal, you know, I don't know, the way I would contextualize it is different than a nurse or a doctor, but
right.
definitely something went wrong.
Yeah, oh, for sure. Yeah. So then I had my C-section with him, which takes away from like that whole experience of like delivering your baby and having that first like chest like skin to skin with them. So they took him out, they took him to be weighed and cleaned him off a little, and then they brought him over after he was like wrapped up in a blanket to
Yeah.
me, and I met him right here at my face, and that was all I could do because my arms were spread out like this.
Yeah. Were you strapped down? Like
I
were your
can't
arms
remember.
free or strapped down?
Actually, I think my one arm, one of my
Was
arms
free?
was free, I think. I think my other one was strapped because of the IV.
Mm. They
But
also say that there's this like urge that people can, which I don't know if this is true or just a tale, but that there's an urge to like scratch an itch when you
okay.
surgery. So you're again, I don't know if this is a real thing or this is
Yeah.
just something they do to do what they want
Right.
to do to you.
Yeah.
But basically like you're cut open and you might feel the urge to like
Yeah.
reach and like touch
Yeah.
the open surgical area.
I
Anyways,
mean, I don't
um
think I would have done that, but um, I mean, it makes sense then why they strap people down. Um, but
yeah,
one thing I
if
forgot to mention is when I chose for C-section, because he wasn't showing any signs of stress, I had to wait. So like I was still contracting and I was just laying there. Not they didn't want me to
yeah.
push anymore because he was already like a little bit down the birth canal.
Hmm.
And I was laying there for like 45 minutes, like just breathing through my contractions. And then they finally wheeled me in. And my midwife came, she was there with me and she held my hand. So that was nice. And Russell was also with me. But yeah, then they took Russell and Brooks, and he did the first like skin to skin with him while they were like stitching me up and shoving all my parts back in my body.
I think that's a good thing to talk about because for people who haven't had a C-section, that's pretty common is that you're allowed to have a support person in the room. Again, those words allowed, right?
Yeah,
So there's a surgical field they're trying to keep sterile. There's mom's head at the
yeah,
top. And usually someone's allowed to be up there with
right.
along with the anesthesiologist. And
Yeah.
then sometimes they'll let the midwives come in, sometimes they won't.
Hmm.
So that's great that you had both. And then once the baby's born, yeah, they'll take them over to the little baby station. They all do, just some extra checks and balances, but they do swaddle them, wipe
Hmm.
them all down, swaddle them up,
Hmm.
and bring them over as the baby burrito.
Hmm.
Um, to you. And I know that there are some places that do more skin to skin, so they might not wrap
Hmm.
up the baby so tightly,
Right.
and they'll like pull, you know, give more space on the mother's gown to have
Hmm.
more skin to skin, and they'll get the partner or whoever the support person is to help hold the baby skin to skin with you for as long as possible,
Hmm.
but in most cases it's not
Yeah.
long. And then that person, dad or whoever, will go with the baby into the adjoining recovery room
Yeah.
and start that skin to skin process, which is kind of like a new-ish procedure where babies do get skin to skin with dad
Right.
or somebody else. Well, like you said, you're being packed up and
Yeah.
stitched up. And then you go all groggy and
Yeah. Oh
feeling
yeah. And then
crazy.
you're all groggy and they give you your baby and then they shove your baby on your boob, but you're like still like numbed and drugged and high as a kite. and,
Yeah.
and it's
Yeah.
such an experience.
Did you feel nauseous? Because I know some women feel also nauseous from the medication.
Um, I was nauseous when I was pushing, not
Hmm.
afterwards.
Okay.
Yeah, while I was pushing, I was feeling nauseous, but yeah, that was it.
Yeah, it's quite the scene.
Yeah, I'm also like super shocked that they even allowed like Russell and my midwife in the OR with me because it was like high COVID times. So
Okay.
like once
Yes.
we
Yeah.
got
Wow.
once we went to the hospital, like checked in to like go to the AMU, we were not allowed to leave. Like we had to bring everything in with us. Russell was not allowed to leave to go get food or anything. And like we stayed there. Luckily, we packed like a good amount of food with us and
Mm-hmm.
brought all the things we needed because we were there for um I had Brooks in the evening, like almost 11 p.m. So we were there that whole night and then the whole next day. And then we went home. They were like, you can stay here another night or you can go home. And it was like 2 in the morning the following night. And we're like, no, we're going home.
Yeah.
Get us out of here. We're going home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fair.
So, yeah.
Okay, so that was your first birth experience.
Hmm.
And then how far after you had Brooks did you get pregnant?
Um, Brooks was about like, I want to say 14, like 14, 15-ish months when we got pregnant with Cade. And I was still nursing Brooke. So I was pregnant and nursing, and that was fine, like at the beginning. And then once I was, Brooks was around 18 months, he started showing signs of like weaning. So I was like, all right, let's just take this opportunity and wean. And I was like starting to get more pregnant, and my boobs were starting to hurt. So I was like, this is perfect.
Yeah, let's
So yeah,
go with this, buddy.
that weaning experience was a good experience with Brooks. And then I thought too, like, oh, I'm gonna get a couple of months of like a break before I have
Hmm.
to like give my body to another baby. But he came early, so that really didn't happen.
So so did you have midwives again with Cade?
Same midwife, yep.
Okay, so the same team. And were there any red flags? Was there anything in your journey that indicated that you might be at risk for preterm labor?
No, honestly, there was nothing except, like I wouldn't even call this like this wasn't even a link to the preterm labor. But when I
Hmm.
was about 14 weeks pregnant with Cade, I had a what they call a subchorionic hemorrhage.
Okay.
And I was like in my kitchen doing dishes at home. It was just Brooks and I had this like massive gush of blood.
Oh,
And
wow.
I like ran to my bathtub. I was like hysterical. Brooks was like, "Mommy, are you okay?" And so I called Russell, I called my midwife, and she was like, "Go to Peterborough Hospital because where we are, we're out near Peterborough." So she's
Hmm.
like, "Go to Peterborough Hospital. I'm gonna call them, tell them you're coming." Um, and she said, "Oh no, she didn't meet me there for that. No, sorry." So
You
I
just
went
said
and
go in right away.
yeah, just go to Emerge. I'm telling them you're on your way. So I went to Emerge. I couldn't even go to like the labor and delivery ward. So I actually had to sit there for a bit and wait. But the nurses were really good at getting me in because to them they're seeing this as like a miscarriage.
Yeah.
So I went in and they checked me like they didn't even do an ultrasound, like a bedside ultrasound because it was late at night and the ultrasound
Mm-hmm.
like clinic was closed and the ER doctor did almost like a pap test, almost like he checked where the blood was coming from. And he said, so the blood
Okay.
is coming from your uterus, which could likely mean a miscarriage.
Okay.
And then he sent me home. So that whole night,
And he sent me home. Of
yeah, that whole night, I'm like not sleeping. I'm so emotional. I'm like,
course.
uh, I had a miscarriage. Like, obviously, that's the worst feeling. So, um, yeah, I went
How many months pregnant were you?
I
Or weeks
was
or whatever?
I was 14, around 14 weeks.
Okay.
Yeah.
And did he get like but obviously he said he just said, okay, go home. Did they give you any information about what was going to happen or what to expect? Or did they give you anything else
He
before
all
you
he
guys
said
went
is I
away?
want you to come back tomorrow, first thing in the morning, to have an ultrasound when they open. And I was
Oh,
like, okay, cool. So now looking back, that's another thing I would have been like, no, I'm not going home. You're giving me a bedside ultrasound right now
Yeah.
because like they have those little ultrasound things on the wheels in the ER. So I'm like, why wouldn't he have just done that? Like it still boggles my mind like why he wouldn't have just done that.
Very interesting. I feel like there is a threshold, and I don't know if anyone has experience with this, but where up to a certain amount of weeks is just so normalized for loss.
Right.
And it's, I mean, we can hypothesize together really, like,
Right.
yeah, why wouldn't they perform a full spectrum of care or whatever, like go
Yeah.
through all of the potential options to be like, what is actually going on here,
Right.
instead of assuming
Yeah.
something, essentially.
No, for sure. And yeah, I mean,
Awful.
my mom had 5 miscarriages. So like uh I was looking at it, oh, maybe I'm just like taking after my mom and I have the same because she had like low progesterone, which was causing the
Mhm.
miscarriages for her. And I was like, oh, maybe that's my problem and that's why this is happening. So that was one thing. Another thing during my pregnancy, which is super unrelated to my premature labor, is we found out our gender with both kids because I'm very impatient and I can't wait that long. So they told us with Cade that he was actually a girl. So
Oh.
that that was another experience that we had. And so I went up until my water broke thinking I was having a girl.
Yeah, that's funny.
So
And I
that was
mean, that just speaks to, again, the way that medicine sometimes gets it wrong, because
yeah,
ultrasounds are not even statistically significantly correct enough
no,
of the time
yeah,
to give people this information, which is also wild. So,
yeah.
oh wow. So you left. Let's go back to that. So you left the hospital. You thought your baby was dying and you're
Hmm.
miscarrying. And then what happened? So you guys went home, and what
Yeah.
was the next morning like?
So we went the next morning. Like my mom came that night to be with Brooks at our house, and then the next morning she stayed with him, and Russ took me to back to Peterborough Hospital. I went in and had an ultrasound done, and the tech, she was like, "So, um, what did they tell you? Um, like, what did they tell you last night in the ER?" And I told her
Mm-hmm.
like everything that he had told me and all the things he did and checked and whatever. And she goes, well, he was wrong because I have a heartbeat right here and it's a very strong one. So I was
Wow.
just like so emotional, obviously. And like, I was like, can we please go and get Russell? So, because like now they
Yeah.
don't bring your partner in until um, they don't bring your partner in until they've done their check and then at the end just to like so he can see the baby. So, so they
Which
brought him
also
in.
blows my mind.
Mhm.
Like, because you you're going through this experience, this horrible thing that's
Mhm.
happening to your family. And like we've been talking a lot in our gatherings about men, but also in these stories, like
Mhm.
your partner is also thinking this is happening to him just
Right.
as much as it's happening to you. And
Right.
he's pushed aside and told, oh, well, we'll call you in a minute. Like it makes no sense.
No.
And it's very disturbing.
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
also want to give a shout out to your mom because I think your mom is the best. So supportive, such an amazing grandma, and I'm pretty sure she's in this chat.
uh,
She
no, she's not.
said
She's not
she's
right now.
not.
That's my aunt.
Oh, your
Yeah.
aunt. Okay, you have a very supportive family,
Yeah.
and it's adorable. I love it, and I just
Yeah.
wanted to share that because it's
Yeah.
so nice to
Yeah.
witness.
Yeah. Yeah, we definitely have a lot of support and we're super thankful for that because like we have my mom's like my side of the family as our support system and Russell's sister and brother as well. So
Yeah.
yeah, we're very thankful for all the great aunts and great uncles and aunts and uncles and great grandma, all the people.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're told this happy news, and then Russell, was he called in? What
Yeah.
happened next?
Yeah. So she went and got him, and I said to him like right away, like there's still a heartbeat, like I didn't miscarry. So he was emotional as well. And then I think she just like finished her whole scan because she was like obviously looking now for where this blood was coming from. And
Hmm.
so we finished the ultrasound. She sent off the scan to, they have a women's clinic in Peterborough. So they had me go to the women's clinic, which is, it's
Right.
at the hospital. I didn't have to leave the hospital. And I went and I met with a nurse practitioner who then explained to me what had happened. And it's like essentially just like a pocket of blood that's in your uterus that could never rupture. But when you're
Hmm.
pregnant, the pressure of the baby growing could release. Like it could
Right.
release that blood. So that's what happened. He pushed on that sac and the blood released and I bled like the bleeding did not last long at all. It was like maybe a day or two and then it was done and then no more issues after that.
Can I ask again? You don't have to answer if you're not comfortable, but I think it would be interesting to know, like, in terms of quantity, because I think for more women who might experience this, might watch this video, might experience
Mm-hmm.
this, um, like, were you filling pads? Was it one pad you were wearing that was catching it? Like, what kind of, was it just spotting that was happening after you left the hospital?
Um, no, for when it first happened, it was like a lot of blood.
Mhm.
Like I would say like more than a cup of blood and it all came out at once. And then when I was in standing in the tub, more blood was coming out and it was a significant amount. Like I think I filled maybe like 3 pads worth
Wow,
of blood. And
that is a
then
lot.
after that, it like turned into just like a very light period and like
Okay.
spotting and that was it. So yeah, and they did tell me too, it's a very common thing. And I was like, why isn't this something that is like taught or told to women when they get pregnant? This is like something that could happen to you. I feel like they should have like a list of things that like if this happens to you, it could be this, this, and this. And so yeah, that was
Yeah.
another thing that I was like, cool, didn't know this was even a thing.
Which is why I asked about
Hmm.
quantity, because like as a practitioner, I try to ask these questions
Hmm.
to learn about it myself, but also to differentiate between, like, okay, so they could have sent you home with this information. Thank you, Auntie, for training.
She's
They could have
probably
sent you home.
on her lunch break.
It's so cute. They could have said, okay, in terms of what to expect next, if you're having a miscarriage, this is what's going to be coming out of your body. This is
Right,
the quantity. Go home and grab some extra pads, or, like, they could have prepared
right.
you in some kind of way for what that looks like and feels like, because it's
Hmm.
different it's different for every woman, but it's also different at different stages of fetal
Yeah,
growth, right? So this is a huge gap in our knowledge as women
yeah,
and in our healthcare. And, like, maybe had you known that if you expected more quantities of things to come out of your body,
yeah.
that and you weren't having that experience, that you wouldn't have spent the night thinking like the absolute worst. Maybe you would
Right.
have been like, maybe there's a chance. Maybe this is not what they said.
Well, and even
Um,
when I like even through the night, like I was still like I experienced morning sickness, like not to an extreme as I had it to an extreme with Brooks, but not to an extreme with Cade. But I had
mhm,
not like nausea like almost through my whole entire pregnancy with him. So I was still nauseous. Like
right.
after this had happened, and my mom was like, that's a good sign. Like if you really truly had miscarried, then I don't think you would be feeling like the morning sickness still. Like I woke up the next morning and I was still like, ugh, I felt like still that like grossness. So I was like holding on to hope. Like I really was, that this was just like a fluke and they were going to tell
Amazing.
me that I
Mhm.
was still pregnant. So yeah,
So interesting.
yeah.
Thank you. Thanks for unpacking that. 'Cause I think it's important.
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely something that like I want to um spread knowledge on, because like pregnant women don't know these things can happen. So definitely. Yeah.
Okay, so you went back, everything was good. Then what happened?
And then we carried on with life. Like that was just that. That was something that had happened that I now had to like heal from almost, because I had this like trauma of
Mm,
being told I had miscarried. And I just had to like pick back up and keep going and be super thankful and grateful that my body was actually not like doing this, and it was not a horrible thing. It wasn't a dangerous thing that happened. There was no harm like to the baby. Like there was nothing negative coming from this. So
yeah.
yeah, it was just one of those things where you flip the page and that's that.
And then how far along were you when your labor started?
So I was 31 weeks when my water broke.
Okay.
Um, Luckily, we were already at my mom's. We were staying at my mom's that I think it was like the beginning-ish of May. I'm not really sure why we were here, but we were here. And I woke up one morning and I walked down to the living room, like down the stairs, and I was just standing there and I felt again another gush, which freaked me
Mm,
out again because I like had that like PTSD from like the hemorrhage.
yeah.
And I went straight to the bathroom and I was like, okay, this isn't blood. This is like clear liquid. So called up my midwife and I was like, Zoe, I like I think my water just broke. And she was like, what? Sorry, I just need to get a Kleenex. I just have a
Go
bit
for
of a
it.
cold. I'm gonna go grab a Kleenex. I'll be right back. I can keep talking though because I had my headphones in. So I called her and I was like, I think my water just broke. And she was like shocked. And then I she said, go to Markham because that's where I planned on having Cade as well, because I had Brooks there and I liked the midwife unit. Like I liked that I was in a hospital, but like didn't feel like necessarily I was in a hospital. Um,
Yeah, they have an interesting setup there.
yeah, it's really nice and like um, it they give you all the tools you need to feel like you're having like almost a home birth, but not really.
Yeah,
Um,
I would say it's close to like a clinic birth feel.
yeah, so they give you that option to use the tub, to use the birthing ball, to use the straps, like all the things
Mhm.
to make you comfortable. Um, she said, go to Markham. I'm calling the labor and delivery ward and telling them you're coming. And I
Yeah.
said, okay. So Russell came home from work. Uh, Actually, no, sorry, he had to meet me there because I think he was working in Toronto that
Okay.
day. And I don't remember if somebody drove me. Yeah, I think my sister.
It's funny how
It's all
it's
a
blurry.
blur. It's a
Yeah.
blur. I think my sister came with me because I obviously didn't want to go alone and had to wait a bit for Russell. So she came with me and they took me in. They did a like they brought me into a labor and delivery room,
Hmm.
and I don't I think it was a nurse that came in and did a swab of the fluid that was coming out of my body,
Yeah.
and they were testing if it was amniotic fluid. So they did a swab, they took it off, came back negative. And they were like, we're just
Mhm.
going to do another one just to make sure. Again, did a swab, came back negative. And so they were like, this could happen. It could just be excessive discharge. Like, we don't like it's obviously not amniotic fluid. And I was like, but I'm pretty sure like this is more than discharge. Like this is
Yeah,
like,
you had a
yeah,
gush rather than like wet.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I was like this is definitely not normal. I knew it wasn't. So I
Mhm.
was like, after the nurses and after the nurse and the OB left, Zoe had met me there, or maybe she was already there for a birth. I can't remember, but she came into the room, and after they left, we were standing there talking to her and just like talking about, oh, that day they sent me for an ultrasound, did the swab, checked everything out. And after they sent me for an ultrasound, Russell and I came back up to the labor and delivery room, and we were sitting there, and Zoe was like, so I have some news for you. And we were like, oh God, what is this going to be? And she
Well,
said, well, the baby is fine. Everything looks fine, but you're not having a girl.
uh,
And Russell and I were like, what the like I actually like swore super loud, and I was like hysterically laughing and crying because
right.
we had this like beautiful pinky peach room at home, and like my mom and I had started thrifting for like really adorable girly clothes. Like we didn't go crazy by any means
Yeah,
because
you're preparing.
I was actually about like my aunt was throwing me a baby shower, just like a small something small because I had already had a big baby shower with Brooks. But because I was
Hmm.
having a girl, they wanted to throw me another one. So we didn't go crazy buying stuff because I was like, people are probably going to give me a ton of girl clothes at this baby shower. So
Yeah.
anyways, it was kind of like he was sick of being called a girl. He's like,
Yeah.
I'm done with
I'm
this
gonna come
shit.
out and show you my boy part.
Yeah. Yeah, so we did the ultrasound. Zoe told us that. We did the swabs, both negative. And then as we were standing there with Zoe chatting, I had another gush, like a significant gush. And I
Okay.
said, Zoe, it just happened again. She's like, go. She went, grabbed a swab. She's like, take this
Mhm.
to the bathroom with you, swab it right away. And of course, it came back positive. So
Yeah.
I am now sitting in this bed. The OB and the team came back in, and he said, super nice, like super nice OB. He was like, so unfortunately, this means your water is broken and you are only 31 weeks. You are not in
Mhm.
labor, so you now have to be put on bed rest. And I was like, okay, so at home, like, can I go home and be put on bed rest? And
Yeah, what does that mean?
he was like, well, not right now. And I was like, okay, why? He's like, well, if you happen to go into labor this early, you need steroid shots to help develop the baby's lungs. And I was
Mhm.
like, okay. So can you give me those and then can I go home? And then he was like, and you need antibiotics because now that your membrane is ruptured, that's
Mhm.
risk of infection getting to you and the baby and like all these different things. And at the time, like obviously I'm terrified because
Yeah.
I have just gone like my water has just broken 9 weeks early, and all of these like what ifs and unknowns are like flooding my mind. So I'm like, okay, like do what you got to do. And he's like, and then after we give you all this stuff, like in a few days, we'll reassess and maybe you can go home and be put on bed rest. Because
Okay.
they told me basically that we want you to be on bed rest as long as possible to keep that baby in you to let him cook. And I
Mhm.
was like, so you're telling me I could be laying here for 5 to 6 weeks? And they were
Yeah.
like, yeah. And I was like, oh my God. I was so emotional because
That
the like
doesn't sound like fun.
no, no, not at all, no. But like it wasn't even the fact, like yes, I was scared, yes, I had all this fear around having a preemie baby, but it was the fact that I have been with my toddler every day of his life, and
Mm,
I am now
yeah.
leaving him to go to the hospital, to stay at the hospital, and he, like, I wasn't going to be able to see him all day every day. So like that was like the biggest thing that was impacting me
Mm-hmm.
throughout all of this. So yeah, so they put me on bed rest. They put me in a lovely private room um in the, where was I at first? They kept me in labor and delivery,
Okay.
and they gave me all of the stuff. So I got the steroid shots, which was not fun, and I got the antibiotics, which again, also not fun. And I also went on a search for breast milk because in the
Mm,
NICU, they give your baby this like pasteurized donor breast milk.
okay.
And I also didn't know at the time if it was like vaccinated breast milk and what, like with the COVID vaccine, because that was all so new. It was just such a, yeah, whirlwind. So I went on the hunt. I found some breast milk that this lovely mom, I think she's in here right now, um,
Aw, oh,
she
that's so
donated
nice.
she donated me, and my dad drove all the way to Collingwood to get this milk for me. Yeah.
Oh,
So
see, the family.
yeah. So
And
that
support
was
a
super
stranger.
amazing. Yes. Yeah. It was, yeah, she's here.
Yay! Thank you
So
so much,
I was
guys.
so thankful for that because now I knew he wouldn't be getting all that junk. So um, yeah, so I got that, even though like I didn't even end up needing all of it because my milk came in super fast, like super fast.
That's
So
wonderful.
yeah,
But very reassuring that you found somebody who was
yeah,
able to support you and help you and like take that off of your mind for a minute.
yeah. And of course, the OB's like, we can give this to your baby, but there is the risk of all these things. And I was like, I don't care. Like, I don't want your pasteurized breast milk.
Whatever that is.
Yeah.
Fashionable
So
formula. Mm-hmm.
yeah, so after they gave me all of those things, I had to stay in the hospital. They didn't want me to go home,
Mm-hmm.
which I should have just like got up and left now that I look back. But I probably would, like, looking back, I had a hard time laying in the hospital with nothing to do. If I was
Yeah.
home, I probably would have not laid in bed. Like I probably would have pushed my body to limits I shouldn't have. Um, so I stayed, and I had Russell there with me. He went to work, he came home, he put Brooks to bed, and then he drove to the hospital and stayed every night with me.
Wow.
So I wasn't alone. I had friends that came and like visited me in the hospital and family members, and so that was super nice. Care packages made for me with all the word searches and all the things. I watched tons of Netflix, like way too much.
I mean,
So
what else
yeah,
can you do?
yeah,
Like there.
yeah.
So how long were you in there for until labor happened?
So I went in on a Wednesday and labor started the following Wednesday. So I was only there for a week, and my body just naturally went into labor. No, there was no like induction, nothing like that. I
Mm-hmm.
actually promised myself that no matter what with my second pregnancy, I was not going to be induced.
Mm-hmm.
So that was that. And yeah, I think it was like the night before. Through the night I started having some cramping, very like light, very on and off. So I didn't sleep at all the night before. And
Yeah.
then the Wednesday, um, my sister and my sister-in-law came to visit me, and my dad came to visit me in the evening time around dinner time, and I was having contractions. They were super spread apart, but I was having
Mm-hmm.
contractions. And then my sister and my sister-in-law were like, "Hey, we're gonna go home. See you later." I'm like, "Oh, okay." But my dad was there. He stayed with me until Russell could get there because I called Russ and I was like, "Listen, like I think it's happening.
It's happening.
Like it is
Yeah.
go time. So he was here with Brooks, but he came to the hospital, and yeah, things started moving pretty quickly at that point. I think it was like 6 o'clock, 5 or 6 o'clock when they like really started to pick up. And then again with Cade, even though he was so small, the back pain, I'd like it was
Mm-hmm.
unreal. So I actually
Interesting.
opted again with Cade because I hadn't slept the night before. I did not have the energy to get him out. Like I was exhausted.
Yeah.
So I got an epidural. This time I got it earlier and it worked. I was like super numb, super. And so Russell and I got some sleep, which was super amazing. Like
Yeah.
around midnight, we got some sleep for about 3 or 4 hours. And then when I woke up, they're like, okay, time to get this baby out. And so they had to wheel me into the OR again with
Mm-hmm.
Cade because he was going to be 8 weeks premature. So this was like
Yeah.
32 weeks that I was going into labor. And they wheeled me into the OR. I think they gave me some like Pictocin or something to like pick up the contractions again because they
Okay.
had like really slowed down because we slept. And
Mm-hmm.
um, sorry, my nose is super stuffed right now. And so once they wheeled me into the OR, it was like pretty much time to start pushing, but I could
Yeah.
not feel what I was doing. I was like, I have no
Mm-hmm.
idea if I'm pushing right now. All I knew is if I was laying like flat on my back, I couldn't feel a thing. So I
Right.
asked them if I could like move a little bit and change positions, and they were like, yeah, sure, like do what you have to do, get comfortable. So at first, I can't remember if it was my left leg or my right leg, but one of my legs was like numb to the point that I like couldn't even lift it myself.
Yeah.
So Zoe was there again. She was there for both my births, even
Okay.
though with Brooks I was transferred to OB because of C-section, and then with Cade I was
Mm-hmm.
transferred to OB care because of premature.
Yep.
So she was still there. She held my leg for me, and um, she was amazing. So she was there, but I was like talking, I was like chatting with everybody in the room, and I'm like,
Yeah, but
Russ,
the girls can do that.
I was like, Russ, get the camera ready. So he like had I gave him my phone. I was like, take pictures, like right when he comes out, like get some pictures. So the shitty thing again with Cade was I couldn't have that like delivery chest moment
Mm-hmm.
again. So I kind of was like robbed of that experience with both deliveries. And yeah, but I got him out. But preemies, what they do, if they're under 6 pounds, they do this thing where they like are almost ready to come out, and then they go bloop, and they go back in, and then they're like almost ready to come out, and then they go whoop back in because they're so tiny. So
Yeah.
he did that, and he was almost there, and they called in the OB, and this OB was this like huge guy, like almost 7 foot, and he was just like these massive hands, and yeah, it was amazing. But he's there, and he's like, "You guys told me, he told me he was coming," and he went back in. So he had to wait a little bit before he was pushed. Like I started pushing again,
Mm-hmm.
and as I started to push again, I felt like a little bit of pressure, but because he was so small, like I didn't
Yeah.
have any tearing or anything like that. No, like crazy sharp shooting pains or whatever. But when he was crowning, the OB was like, "He's crowning. Do you want to feel?" So
Mm-hmm.
I got to like feel him crowning,
Oh,
and then like literally 2 seconds later, it was just like bloop, because he was
the
like
rest of it came out.
just this tiny little thing that it was just like la la la, like right out like a slip and slide.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, yeah. So
And then what
then
happened?
he was like super loud, like his lungs sounded great. For 8 weeks, they were expecting this like fragile little baby,
Yeah.
and he was 5 pounds. So he was
Yeah.
not like your
He looks big in
typical,
his picture.
yeah, he was not your typical 3 pound preemie that is like just barely holding on to life. Like he was like ready to be here, and
Mm-hmm.
he made that very clear to everybody. So the OB was like, we're gonna do delayed clamping because he's showing great signs. So after he came out, the OB held him on the table and they delayed clamping for maybe like a minute. I can't remember how long.
Okay.
And then they asked Russell, do you want to cut the cord? So Russell cut the cord, and then they took him. They were like, okay, say bye to him. And I was like, no.
Yeah.
So they then had to take him quickly to the next room. So they had to go like through the doors to the next room. But Russell was
Mm-hmm.
allowed to go with him, which I was like really thankful for because I just didn't want him to be alone. And
Yes.
so Russell went with him. They put him in the bed, like the warming bed, where they do all of their like inspections.
Yep.
And they weighed him, and he was 5 pounds on the dot, and he didn't need like any breathing help, so he didn't need a mask. He didn't need to be intubated. Basically, they see the next like what they did with him. Like Russell was there, so it's not like they were doing anything to him that I didn't know they were doing. But I don't know what they were doing because I wasn't there. So
Yeah. Yeah. You weren't able to witness it.
yeah. So they didn't give him any shots or anything. I don't think they gave him vitamin K, and um, they just brought him to his little bed in the NICU and put him in like that case where it's got like the holes that you can like reach your hands in.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to be wheeled back to my room that I was in before, for the epidural to wear off, and
Right.
so that they could make sure that I could go pee
Yeah.
before I could go see him. So it was about like almost 2 hours, and I was like getting super frustrated because, again,
Yeah.
like Russell got that first skin to skin interaction with him, and I had to just like wait. Like it was so, so hard. So eventually I was like, I don't care anymore, Russ. Come and get me. Stick me in a wheelchair. We're going. Like, let's
Mm-hmm.
go. So Russ,
Interesting what you. Yeah. So did you pee or no?
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
But I was like, quick. My one leg was like still kind of numb, and I was like, I can do it. I know I can do it. So I got up, I went pee, and then I was like, let's go. So
Mm-hmm.
that one picture I sent you of I'm in like the hospital gown still, and he's on my chest with the little like hat on that looks like a French beret. Is that what they're called? Beret? Yeah. Yeah, so that was my first like skin to skin with him, and I basically had to start like expressing colostrum and like pump. I didn't start pumping right away. I just started expressing, like hand expressing, because he was too small to nurse. Like his mouth was just not
Okay.
gonna get on my boob.
Did you try, or is that what you were told, or how did that happen? Like, how did that unfold? These are
I
the parts that I'm really curious
Yeah,
about.
I didn't try. It's what I was told.
Um,
I honestly don't like he couldn't even hold on to a soother. Like I don't think he would have been able to latch at all. Um, and but I tried. Like I literally gave him like a couple of days, and I was like, we're trying. Like the lactation consultant too said like you can try as many times as you want to try, and
yeah.
until he like masters that skill, um then he'll be able to. But we would try, like at feeding times I would try, and then we would have to do like top ups. So whatever he like, or however long he latched for, we would like, they would do their math, and then they would do top ups for him. And so he had a feeding tube
Okay.
in his nose, and yeah. Yeah.
Interesting. So interesting.
Yeah.
Did they talk to you? Okay, so were you matched up with a lactation consultant immediately? Did they have him on? Because like NICU is such a bubble,
Yeah.
right? And all NICU parents have a special, bond because it's unlike the experience of anything else.
Yeah.
So what were the first, again, and sort of in the spirit of preparing women that might experience this, obviously healthcare systems will be different, but here they're kind of all the same,
Yeah.
in Ontario anyway. So what happened first? Like, did they walk you through any of it? Did they talk to you about, like, so he had a feeding tube. Was that an immediate thing that was on him? Was there anything else hooked up to him?
Yeah, he had monitors hooked up to him as well. So like the little heart monitors, and then they had like another one as well, which was his ox. No, they had one on his foot that was his like oxygen level,
Yep.
and they had four little sticky things on him for heart monitors, um, and then the feeding tube as well. Oh, and IV. He had IV. I think the IV was for hydration, I want to say. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
there was a lot of things, and it's very overwhelming, and it's very much one of those situations that you're just like, okay. Like, I asked, like, as they were telling me all these things, I asked all the questions because I wanted to know, like, why are you giving this to him? What is the benefit of giving this to him? What is it
Amazing.
for? So they actually, when I was on bed rest for that week, they sent
Mm-hmm.
me the nutritionist, they sent me the lactation consultant, they sent me, I even had like a therapist as well, like a social worker that was like coming to see me because she knew like how hard that situation can be. Um, and the nutritionist was the one that explained like we put this fortifier in their milk so that they can like bring up their weight like faster and all this stuff, which I think looking back, and if I could go back, I would probably opt out of that because I feel like the breast milk probably would have been sufficient enough for him
Yeah.
calorie wise. But again, so many things that I wish
And fat.
that, yeah, like give me a second. I just need to like research that quick. Like I wish I had done more of that before saying yes to it. Um, but they also put in his IV like electrolytes and all like different vitamins as well he was being given. And yeah, the monitors, but they gave me this information before I had him. So this wasn't just like after I had him, I'm in this like crazy emotional state of like fear and all these things. Like this was before I gave birth to him that I had this information. Um,
Good differentiation to make in your experience. You had this time, whereas some
yeah.
people, their experience is like it's an emergency birth. It's happening all so fast, and then all of a sudden they have the baby hooked up to all these things
Yeah.
going in and out of their
Yeah.
body.
And then they were also giving me like, if I'm being honest, I think like all the things they were going to be giving him after in terms of like food and hydration was like the least of my worries at the time because like the unknown of having a preemie that early, there's so many things that
Mm-hmm.
could have gone wrong in terms of his breathing, in terms of like just so many things. So
Yeah.
they're giving me all of these like things that are a possibility, which like they have to do,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's their protocol. So they have to tell you this, and this could happen, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Chelsea's just
he was,
asking to catch up.
yeah. I
So this
don't
is
know.
Sabrina's.
Sorry, I actually don't know why he came early. They did tell me that I had an infection, like in my placenta, but
Oh, okay.
they don't know if the reason my water broke or if I contracted that after my water had already been broken.
Mm,
Um,
yep.
and he was born 8 weeks early for Chelsea there.
She had her water break, and then she was on bed rest for a week, and then she just went into labor. And he was born, and his lungs were great, and we're just kind of discussing what happens next once your baby's in the NICU. And yeah, the interesting thing that you had the time to kind of wrap your head around some stuff, to make a more informed choice in the moment. But still, I think you're in the moment, even just like seeing it would feel different than what you were thinking it would be like, having that week of time.
It's not like either it was like my first baby and I just had to focus on that. Like, I had Brooks at home, who, like, my family was bringing him to visit me, so I had this whole other like being that I was focusing on, as well as like trying to make these choices about my baby that was about to be born, and just like all these things that were like happening at once. That was like, holy crap, like, how do I navigate this? So so then
How long in the NICU?
he was in the NICU for 3 weeks. So in the NICU, at least at Markham, there's 3 requirements that a baby has to meet before they can send them home.
Okay.
One is their weight. So they
Okay.
have to be heavy enough for the car seat. 2
Okay. Wait. Okay.
is they have to be being fed exclusively by mouth, not by feeding tube.
Yep.
So he had to either be bottle fed or breastfed. And then the third requirement is they have to be a gestational age of 35 weeks. So he was 32 weeks when he was born. We had to stay for 3 weeks regardless. But they hooked. Sorry, I'm getting. Oh, that was a message in the other group. Yeah. So those were.
Do not disturb, girl.
Yeah. Those were the 3 requirements. He was already born at a weight that was safe enough for the car seat, but he dropped a little. But he dropped a little bit, like after birth. So we had to get him back up.
Yeah. So I don't know if you caught that in the other stories, because I know you were listening in live, but probably because you had the epidural and because you had Pitocin, it was most likely given with that saline fluid. So you would have had that in your body, and he would have had that in his little body, making him appear to weigh more than he would have had you not had those things.
Right.
But still, he needed to come up to the weight requirement throughout those weeks.
Yeah. So, he dropped, a little bit. And then it didn't take him long, though, to come back up. Like, in the NICU, it's really cute. They do these little, like, cards on their bedside where, like, they meet, like, certain things. They're like, first full bottle by mouth, that they, like, put a little, like, card on his bed. And then it was, like, first, or, like, meeting the weight requirement. It's, like, these little, like, celebrating things. That's really cute. But, so after he met the weight requirement, we were still doing some breast, some bottle, some top up by NG tube. And then by the end of the second week being there, I also slept at the hospital. I'll add that, because a lot of people who have kids that are like previous kids can't stay at the hospital with their NICU baby, because they might not have somebody to watch their older child. So I had that. I had that support. I was able to be at the hospital 24/7. I did leave like a few times through that, like through those 3 weeks. I left and I came home to hang out with Brooks. But I stayed there majority of the time. So like,
did you have your own room?
I actually paid. So to stay overnight, they call it at Markham, they call it hoteling. And they use they use rooms that are available in the midwife unit that you can stay in. So the midwife unit is hardly ever full. it's usually like one or two moms in there at once. They have their baby, they go home. Like it's very quick turnover.
Right.
So Russell and I had a room, but not a very comfortable one. So
Not a
yeah.
true accommodation for what NICU families really need. It's very different at sick kids. There are a lot more resources for NICU families. I had a friend and a client who had a baby there. Very different experience, obviously, much higher risk, lots more things going on with babies if you're at sick kids.
Yeah.
But even then, it's still probably not really what families require in that situation.
Yeah, they
I
do.
don't know if you saw Kate's comment there. Do you feel like that 3-week protocol made sense to your family? She asked.
Yeah, I mean, it actually, like looking back, like at the time, in the moment, I was like, I just want to go home. Like, can I please just go home with my baby?
Yeah.
But I also, like, now in hindsight, am super thankful that it was a 3-week protocol because I got all that help and extra like support that I needed to succeed with a preemie. Like
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't just sent home with this tiny little human that I had no idea to care for. Like I was there every day with the nurses. Like we became good friends and I like it was actually like a really good experience for me. I know that not every NICU um, case is a good experience, but it was actually a very good one for us. So yeah, it made sense for us. I mean, it was hard being away from like Brooks, my older son, but we like I look at it now and I'm like, that was 1 month away from
Yeah.
Brooks, and it could have been that 5 to 6 weeks they wanted me on bed rest, and then him being born, it could have been longer. So I think that it happened the way it happened for a reason, and yeah.
And what did they prepare you for in terms of like what were your biggest takeaways, I guess, in terms of what was to come next when you guys did get to go home? What were the challenges that you faced with Preemie, and how did you kind of start to integrate into just like normal life?
There honestly was no challenge at all. Like
Let's
after
love
those 3 weeks, there was
it.
no challenge. Like it was like leaving with a regular, like full term baby. I was there with him. I put in the work. I didn't want him being bottle fed. I didn't want him having
Mm,
anything else other than my breast milk.
yeah,
So I
yeah,
was there doing the work with the nurses, with the lactation consultants to get him latching. So I yeah,
huge.
the nutritionist, she actually said to me, like by the end of my stay, I went home like exactly 35 weeks. I was like, please send me home, please. Like we are
Yeah.
good. So she came and she said to me, they do their rounds right in the morning. And on my very last day of rounds, she said that she's only ever seen in her whole career 3 moms, including me, I'm the third one, leave the NICU exclusively breastfeeding. And
Wow.
I remember the neonatologist as well. She like gave me a hug and she was like, I'm so proud of you. Like
Oh,
you were here, you put in that work,
yeah.
you did that skin to skin almost all day every day, and you were here. So um yeah, so yeah, thank you.
Yeah, way to go. Chelsea's cheering you on and so proud of you, and Kate's cheering you on as well. I think that is huge. That's a huge message that people need to hear is it is work.
Yeah,
You even if like let's say Kate was born naturally full term,
yeah,
breastfeeding would have been work
yeah,
regardless, right? So yeah, if you have this goal of feeding your baby by breast, you have to put in the work. It
yeah,
doesn't just magically happen for most of us naturally, where you like baby on the boob and that's all you
yeah,
gotta do. It is, there's a lot more to it.
yeah,
And there's a lot of factors into making it successful. And we know that hospitals are stretched thin with their employees,
yeah.
right?
No,
So
and
not
I
everybody
I
gets that
suffered.
that level of support.
I pressured them. I was like, I need to see the lactation consultant.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, you advocated for yourself
yeah,
and
oh
put
yeah,
the pressure on.
I
Yeah.
did, yeah,
And
for
that's what
sure.
it takes. And I think that's the honest conversation that moms need to hear, that dads need to hear as well, is you got to put the pressure on.
Yep.
If you ask for something, don't worry about being annoying. Follow up and say, is that person coming? What time are they coming? How long are they here for? Like, really ask all the questions to find out what you can expect for your experience so that you can hold them to it. Because I think a lot of people sit in that bed, if you're in like the postpartum recovery ward, you sit in that bed with your button that they give you and you're like, oh, I don't know if I should press it. I don't want to bug them. Oh no, you can't hear me. Oh, can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Maybe we're finally getting caught up too.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, and I know now what happened. My mom just pulled in the driveway with my vehicle and my Bluetooth connected to the car.
Connected. Oh, that's so funny. She heard my impassioned speech
Yeah.
about advocating. I was just saying, like, ask all the questions and ask like what to expect so that you can say like, hello, they're not here yet. Like I am waiting on the lactation consultant. Because sometimes you'll get left out because there's other people that get more time because they're higher priority or things happen in those spaces and they're already stretched so thin. So I think that's a huge part of your story to share, is like you really advocated for your journey and for your son, for your family, to get what you needed to support your goals. So that's amazing. Good job.
Thank you. Yeah, and so then after you leave the NICU, they give you this pediatrician that you have to, well, you don't have to, but you're supposed to take your preemie to see, and it's like a pediatrician that only specifically sees NICU babies from Markham.
Okay.
So we took him to the first appointment, which I think was like a few weeks after we had gone home, or maybe it was a week after we went home. And they just basically weighed him and checked him to see that his like jaundice was gone, because he had jaundice in the NICU. And they put them in this little like blue light I called it his tanning bed. And they yeah, but he was good. So then we didn't do the next checkup appointment because Zoe, she actually came, even though I was no longer in her care, or maybe I was after I got home or after care. She came and did like the final two, I think, checkups with Cade, and with me. So yeah, he was good to go. He was like, yeah, all the things. Yeah, there was actually one thing that I forgot to mention about our NICU experience. After born, his white blood cell count was like super elevated. So they ran all kinds of tests to figure out what was going on with this little man and what was happening, because white blood cell count can mean infection. It can mean like this. It can mean, yeah, and like babies with Down syndrome, they also have an elevated white blood cell count. So they tested him like for meningitis. They tested him for all these different illnesses and to see if he was Down syndrome as well. And every single one of the tests came back negative. And then after a few days, the white blood cell count started to come down on its own. And they figured that because I ended up having an infection, that it like what's the word I'm looking for? It carried over into him.
Yeah, his body was preparing for potential infection perhaps as well by increasing the white blood cell count.
It was just fighting off whatever that was. So yeah, and I had like placental abruption with him as well, which was not
fun. But yeah, so that was, I think that was the scariest part of our NICU experience, was all of these like unknowns of these things they were testing him for. So
Mhm.
once those came back negative, though, it was like he was like flying colors. Like he, so once they get out of their little like bed thing, their like enclosed bed, they put them in clothes and swaddle, and they put them in like an open bed, like a bassinet.
Yep.
And he transitioned to that like super quickly. And yeah, all the things he had to like, all the requirements he had to meet, all the things he had to do to get out of there, he was like, I got this. Like, I'm good. I can do this. So he was a little champ. Yeah.
Amazing. Did you have anything else that you wanted to pass on or share about your experience with these two ones? Anything that you're looking forward to for the future based on your experience with these guys?
I don't think we're gonna have any more kids. So I think
I wasn't sure.
good. Yeah. But I think one thing that I would tell any woman that is pregnant or wanting to get pregnant and wanting to have kids, is to just like do your homework. Because if I could go back, I would, there's so many things I would say no to, or I would have asked more questions about, and
Yeah.
I would have done more research on. Like, I would have done more homework on those things. So I think like my biggest thing is like, know you have options, know that you're allowed to say no, and like you don't have to do what they're telling you just because they're a doctor or just because they're your midwife. They're like, yeah, that's what I would say, is just have your power, know your rights, know your everything. So yeah.
Mhm. Amen to that. Thank you so much for sharing your
Thank you.
story and sharing your time with
Yeah,
us.
thank
Love
you.
it.
Great. It's so nice to share. Like, not everybody cares to like listen to your birth story, but when you have people that actually want to hear it, it's so nice talking about it, because it's a huge part of your life. Like, this is like the biggest accomplishment of your life, is having these babies. So, sharing my birth
Totally.
story. Yeah.
And to validate those huge wins, right? To like to know that you were one of three in that person's career.
Yeah.
Massive, and that should be celebrated, and you should feel really proud of that. And I agree, it's we don't often have these healthy spaces to talk about it. Like my kids were asking me today, like, how long are you going to be? Because it's a snow day in their home.
Yeah.
And I was like, as long as she needs. That was my answer. I was like, as long as she needs to tell her story. And I know even like yesterday with Chelsea's birth story, it's like we could have talked for
Yeah.
days, you know? There's so much to unpack about these experiences and to explore. And I'm really excited that you're a part of this and that we have many more days
Yeah.
to come. Tomorrow we have Bonnie, who's going to talk about her vaginal birth after 2 cesareans.
Okay.
So we're going to hear from that perspective. And then I just wanted to say, if anyone wants to support the project, there's a link in my bio to buy me a coffee, so that we can do more of this. Because I know there's people out there who also want to, we have a full roster, but there's more people who want to share their stories. So your support would also help me to continue to offer this for free in the future for other ones as well. So
Yeah, thank you.
yeah.
Thank you for making this possible, and for all the things you do for women and moms especially. It's like amazing, and I wish I knew you 3, 4 years ago.
Oh my, well, we know each other now. You're part of the fam girl, so
And
no escaping me now.
Thursday. So
Yes. Okay, everybody have a wonderful day. Thank you, and we'll see you all tomorrow.
bye. Thank
Bye.